Welcome back. Common sense and common decency. It's the battle cry of Democrat Todd Litton, educated at Duke, Rice, and the University of Texas. He's a lawyer and former financier who left the for-profit world to deploy his skills with organizations dedicated to improving lives. Pro-choice, pro-immigration reform, and pro-universal pre-K, Litton believes his progressive voice is well suited to serve communities stretching from Katy to Kingwood in the U.S. Congress. Todd Litton, thanks for taking the hot seat, man.
Thanks for having me on, Greg.
Hey, you've written about gerrymandered districts, and District 2 is an example. You think voters there are willing to give a Democrat a fair shot, and what compelled you to run?
Well, it sure seems that way, Greg. You know, I got in this race for a fundamental reason. I believe America is at a real time of crisis. Washington is broken right now. There are no checks and balances, and there's a hyper-partisanship that is really dividing our nation like no time in my lifetime. My wife, I was born and raised here in Houston, and my wife Jennifer and I are raising our 3 kids here. What we see in Houston doesn't represent what's going on in Washington at all. And the bottom line is we're working hard to make sure that we can take up Houston's way of getting things done, of working together to find solutions and to move forward in a positive way. That's what we see and experience in Houston. I'm running to take that to Washington and start to change how Washington works for our community in Texas too and for our country.
Todd, you've talked to voters in your district a bunch, and damage from Harvey is a big topic. You have pointed out or placed the blame for the extent of the damage, lack of preparation, on Republican lawmakers. What do you mean when you say that?
Well, part of the damage for Harvey, as you said, Greg, the damage is extensive. Our gerrymandered district stretches from Kingwood to Cypress Creek, down to Addicks Reservoir, all the way down to the Brays Bayou. We had damage in all of those areas. There's been just a fundamental amount of neglect of the infrastructure needs of our community. That led to really extreme flooding circumstances all across our district. In the Kingwood and Lake Houston area, there was flooding because the San Jacinto River Authority, a state entity, released water from the Lake Conroe. And also we didn't regulate sand mining in that area. That's a state issue right there. In the Cypress Creek area, our biggest watershed in Harris County, there's flooding because we've never built that 3rd reservoir. That's something the federal government talked about doing decades ago. The Addicks Reservoir also had significant flooding. In 2009, the federal government declared that one of the 6 worst dams in the country. We have not done anything to repair that or maintain that in a way that will protect our community in Houston. And in Brays Bayou too, we got to break through red tape. We started expanding Brays Bayou after Tropical Storm Allison in 2001. It hasn't even got outside the loop. So we've got to do that. I want to break through the red tape, and I want to bring all these entities together, the federal government, the state government, and the local counties and cities to figure out how do we protect our people and our property in Harris County.
Another important issue, health care. You want to expand access and lower cost. Man, how do you do that? I mean, that's the Rubik's Cube. I mean,
you know, we have health care for everybody right now. My wife Jennifer's a doctor, and she used to work at Ben Taub's ER. She had way too many people come in at times who let their health problem get out of hand, right? They come in. When that happens, nobody wins. That person is extremely ill. Their families suffer. The community suffers when they can't go to work. And then the taxpayer, the local taxpayer, suffers when they don't have insurance. That doesn't make any sense. We've got to make sure that all people have access to health care so they can be productive for their families, for our communities, and for our country.
Should we be moving towards single payer?
I don't believe so, and I said so during the Democratic primary. That wasn't the most popular position in the Democratic primary, but I was willing to stand up and say, I don't know how we pay for that. We do need to expand access to Medicaid like other states have done across the country. We pay for that right now in Texas for people to have access to Medicaid in Pennsylvania or Ohio. We got to make that available to people here. So local taxpayers aren't footing the bill. We've got to figure out how to drive down drug prices too. And I want to make sure that Medicare is negotiating. The federal government uses the power to negotiate so we can drive drug prices down significantly for our people. I hear about that in Texas too all the time.
Okay, you've called for comprehensive immigration reform. What would that look like, you know, in Todd Litton's world?
Well, number one, I'll tell you, it doesn't look like a wall. Right? We need to not build a wall. That's a 15th century solution for a 21st century problem right now. We don't need to be using 21st century dollars that could be used to rebuild our infrastructure to build a wall. It doesn't make any sense and it won't work. I also look at what's going on in immigration reform right now, separation of families. We've got to stop this. That's not what America is all about. You're a dad, Greg, and so am I. I mean, I can't imagine leaving a place that's dangerous for my family, trying to build a better life for them, tracking hundreds, maybe 1,000 miles, risking life and limb, getting to America to build that better life and being separated from your children. That's not what America's all about. That's not what people of Texas too are all about either. We're going to fix this. We've got to work together to do that.
Final question. Whether he likes it or not, your opponent Dan Crenshaw is married to the policies of the Trump administration. Does that help you or hurt you in this District 2 race? His linkage with Trump.
Yeah, look, I think one of the key responsibilities of Congress is to be a real check and balance on the executive branch. That's not happening right now. Dan said he's going to be a real voice for this president in the district and help and promote his policies and his actions as president. I want to be a voice for the people of Texas too. I want to represent those people in Congress, and I will not be a rubber stamp for this president. We'll see how that works, but I think I can go to Washington and prove for the people of Texas too that I can serve their interests the best and not be a rubber stamp for this president.
Todd Litton, thanks for taking the hot seat. Hope to have you back, okay?
I'd like to be back, Greg. Thanks so much.
When we come back, Beto versus Cruz turns a bit nasty as the incumbent calls out his challenger's mom as a tax cheat. Stay with us.